You're tuned into Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner on 90.7 K-Squid. I'm your host, DJ Dupsie, and joining us for Sunday Dinner this evening will be Angel Tutar, who is the director of the American Indian Resource Center at UC Santa Cruz. Angel's going to talk to us about the importance and the relevance and the ever-present need for spaces like American Indian Resource Centers on college campuses. My other guest tonight will be Sheyna Burns, and Sheyna is going to talk to us about a vertical garden project that they're involved in and what that has to do with food independence, food sovereignty, and just getting back in touch with Mother Nature. And we'll end tonight's dinner by reading a couple passages from the book Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. Under my voice is the song Boat Cruise by Thundercat, and this is from the Golden Age of Apocalypse album. Once again, you're listening to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner on 90.7 K-Squid. Welcome, and good evening. Welcome to the Sunday Dinner. I am DJ Dupsie. You're listening on 90.7 K-Squid, and I'm so excited to have my guest today with me for our Sunday Dinner, Angel
Tutar.
Yes, we're doing it, Angel. It's happening. We're here. Thank you for joining us on the Sunday Dinner. And a little later, we'll get to Sheyna, who's here with us in the studio as well. So thank you for joining us on Sunday Dinner this evening. So, Angel, you are the director of the American Indian Resource Center. I mean, that's one of the hats you probably wear, right? But just tell us, briefly about, who you are, your journey, and how you found your way to the American Indian Resource Center at UC Santa Cruz.
Thank you, Mark. Happy to be here tonight and with all of you. I have another great guest here next to me, so this is really exciting. So thank you. It's been quite the journey. It's been full circle is kind of how my story goes. And that, I was born and raised in Santa Cruz. I went to school here. Lifelong friends.
Oh, which high school did you graduate from? You want to shout out? Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
I wish I could say it was still here, but it's Loma Prieta High School. It was a continuation high school which has now transitioned into the Costanoan.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I went to a couple of high schools here. Went to Harbor High, went to Santa Cruz High.
All right. Shout out.
Yes. And then I tried to start school at Cabrillo College, but at that point in my life, college and me just did not see eye to eye. So I started working. I was a commercial driver for 10 years, drove truck.
Oh, wow.
And then after that, I decided that I wanted to continue to work with the Native community because my family had started the Santa Cruz Indian Council back in 1985.
Wow.
And so I was second generation to learn from my family, my aunties, and my grandma, and eventually worked through the positions and became the chairperson of the Santa Cruz Indian Council. And that had always kept me connected to the Native community here in Santa Cruz County, San Benito County, Monterey County, and Santa Clara County. And then I decided that I was going to do a career change, and I went to the Indian Health Center of Santa Clara Valley, and I worked there for 7 years. And again, very connected. I'll get there. The full circle story.
Yeah.
I'll try and be quick about this.
No.
Decided to go back to school, and took me 11 years to finally graduate from UCSC. And while I was at UCSC, I was an intern at the Ethnic Resource Center working with El Centro and the American Indian Resource Center. And somewhere along the line, one of the directors for El Centro, Rosie Cabrera, was my mentor and one that I worked with at the Santa Cruz Indian Council. And she invited me up to the university a few times. And so when I was up there back in the late 90s, I think, I was like, wow, I want to be here. And then I got to meet the director, Dennis Tibbetts, at one point, and I was like, I really want to be here.
Nice.
And she's like, Mija, go to school and you can be here. And so that's what I did. And so now I'm in my dream job, working with the community, working with students, and I love every moment.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and no need to, rush the story, however long it takes to form the circle. That's what we're here for at the Sunday dinner, right? We're sharing our stories, right? And that's a great story, right, of how you found yourself, in this role and in this place. And also some local history for folks, right? If you weren't aware of how, schools have changed and like what used to be around and like, the forming of different organizations, right? This is individual history, but it's also local history, right? And so for folks out there unfamiliar with a place like an American Indian Resource Center, right? And of course at UC Santa Cruz, we call it an American Indian Resource Center, but there are similar places across the country called different things, right? And so for us at UC Santa Cruz, what would you say is the mission, purpose, or calling of a place like the AIRC at a place like UC Santa Cruz?
Well, I have to say that at the university, we are very fortunate to have the American Indian Resource Center, because not all colleges within the UC have a center for Native American students. So I feel very honored and privileged to be working in this capacity and be there to support our American Indian students that really deserve to have someone there to support them in so many different capacities. So the Resource Center is designed to be a support place, and I mean support emotionally, physically, spiritually, culturally, traditionally. We are very student-centered in all means of our programming, our workshops. Again, the support, it entails their academic support, their professional development, and their personal well-being. We're this link to the university as a reminder that our ancestors are with us, our people are with us, our families are with us. The Native population is here and thriving in so many different capacities.
Yeah, and that support piece, right? If you don't mind me just taking a brief tangent, what have you experienced so far? What kind of feedback have you gotten thus far in terms of like how that support piece has impacted, whether it's students, staff, faculty who identify as Indigenous American, American Indian? What feedback have you gotten about how that support piece has impacted folks?
I get a lot of good feedback. I would say primarily from students, knowing that they have a place to go, that they have people that they can identify with, that they can build relationships with. One thing that's always a topic of conversation is building community, engaging with community. Well, as soon as you get folks together, that is building community, and that is engaging with community. And so being able to have that space wherever it may be on campus, our primary location is at the Ethnic Resource Center, but wherever we may go on campus, we're bringing with us that community. And so really trying to highlight the Native American population on campus and all of the wonderful and great leadership that they bring with them and the knowledge that they bring with them, It's just absolutely amazing. The faculty on the faculty on campus are, again, amazing and very, very supportive of the Native students. They support the programming, the events by attending, by advocating for Indigenous study programs on campus, and really trying to integrate the Native population in a way that it needs to be integrated.
So to that point, right, why would you say, or depending on how you believe, what you believe, right, that resources for Indigenous American and American Indian people are needed and necessary, particularly in places of quote unquote higher education, right? So in the community, that, argument, may not be as hard to make, right? But in terms of resource centers at places of quote unquote higher education around college campuses, why do you believe that these places are necessary, right? Given that support you also touched on, but are there other reasons why you feel that their presence is necessary?
Well, the necessity is because through history, we were wanting to be taken out of the picture. Folks were wanting to take the Native population out of the history. And so that didn't happen because we're here.
Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
And we're thriving, and we're leaders, we're professionals, we're educators, we're traditional and spiritual leaders. We bring the history of time with us through generations, and that cannot be erased. And so the importance of having the center just solidifies our being here presently, our innate need to share our stories, to learn from each other, to again build community, and to continue. One thing this brings me to think about is a lot of talk about our next 7 generations. When we think and we process and we look into the future, we're looking into generations ahead of us.
Yes.
And that importance of having safe water to drink.
All right.
Land to grow our food on. It's a matter of being who we are in every sense. We've been here since the beginning, and not everyone sees it that way, but it's okay. It's okay that they don't. But my thought is that we're living for today, but we're also living for the future. So we're always continuing our fight to be here, to be acknowledged for who we are, and to build and promote our leaders, our next generations.
7 generations in the space. And we just brought into Sunday dinner. Yes. And if you're just now tuning in, you are listening to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner on 90.7 K Squid. Thank you for joining us for dinner, some food for thought we got going here with Angel Rio Tutar, the director of the American Indian Resource Center at UC Santa Cruz. So coming off what you just said, right? And I have some more questions for you, so we'll see where we get to. Time is going by. It's great. What do you think it means, right, especially given some of the things you just brought up, right, for a quote-unquote land-grant institution, right, like UC Santa Cruz, to exist on Indigenous American land while Indigenous American enrollment, graduation rates, and staff and faculty representations are generally low? What does that mean? What comes up for you when you kind of, look at those facts juxtaposed to each other?
That's a great question, because at this time, there's a lot of discussion about land grant, land back, and what does that mean. So for UCSC, It was chartered as a land-grant college in 1868. The Central Santa Cruz campus occupies 2,000 acres on the west side of the city of Santa Cruz. And at this time, there's 0.6% American Indian student population on campus.
Wow.
So there's definitely land available. I mean, if you're looking at land grant, there's possibilities for UCSC to honor some land grant back to the Indigenous population that's here in Santa Cruz County. At this time, the Amamutsun tribal band are the stewards of this land, and they honorably accept this, what would I say? It's an honor to be a steward of this land, and this is something that everyone is capable of doing, and taking care of Mother Earth in the way that Mother Earth needs to be taken care of to be sustainable for all of us and our future generations. So with 6%, that roughly equates to maybe 120 American Indian students on campus.
And at 0.6%, yeah.
And I know 3 graduates, or not graduates, but graduate students that are Native American. So I don't know exactly what the population is for grad students, but for undergraduate students, again, roughly right around there. And at the American Indian Resource Center, we have an internship. And so we have a team of 7 students that really are an intricate part to the process of providing that space, that welcoming, that home away from home space for American Indian undergraduate students and graduate students as well. Today, well, I would say last year was the first introduction of the Native American Opportunity Program, which really was significant in the UC system to acknowledge the Native American population and provide some scholarship for them to attend our campuses. And so that really is highlighted to bring in students. So that will increase the population, and then there's some other work behind that just to really try and increase the number of Native students that are attending our UC campuses.
Yeah, and with that, right, what can or should institutions like UCSC do to be in better relationship with local indigenous communities and the land that it currently occupies?
I love building better relationships.
All right. Yeah, I was going to say, speak on it. Speak on it.
There's so many things that we can do for each other to build relationship and build capacity. And, you know, one thing that I'm in conversation with a few folks on campus is about, having land spaces on campus that are available to the Amamutsun tribal band members as well as the Native population on campus. So through my knowledge, back in the late 70s, there was a lot of traditional ceremonies taking place on campus, and that's something that I'm revisiting to see how that would look, and how that would look for campus administrators, and really like holding folks accountable to things that they say. So that's one way. And the other way that I have, these are not my ideas, just to know. I mean, these are shared conversations that have been had throughout at least my time on campus. And of course, I support them. Yes. And another way that I really would like to see brought to reality is full tuition. Having full tuition paid for the Amamutsun tribal members.
Ashe.
Yeah. And then also more support for housing and student services fees for our American Indian students.
Yes.
And then again, solidifying the relationship that we've built, that UCSC has built with Chairman Lopez and with the help of Rick Flores and, of course, the IFN in creating an official formalized relationship in an MOU.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So
I know you've got.
I
more.
do have a list.
I know there's so much more, but yeah, we're definitely, we'll have you back right in the future. This will definitely not be the first and last time we have you on Sunday dinner, right?
Okay.
But just a couple more questions for you, right? And then we'll take a little break here. But thinking about now places like American Indian Resource Centers. On college campuses, right? There's this history, right, of Indigenous boarding schools that, I don't think folks talk about enough, right, in terms of what happened there and the impact on the Indigenous community, right, in the U.S. and in Canada. And so I'm thinking about reparative efforts, right, surrounding, Indigenous education, right, and connecting like how this was supposed to be a space of education, but it was a space of trauma and loss. And so what do you think are some things that need to be done in order to, get at that reparative effort, right, surrounding Indigenous education and Indigenous life?
Well, I just want to throw out a little bit of history with that.
Yes, give it to us.
Okay, so the boarding schools were created through the U.S. and Canada, and it was actually a military strategy, and it started from 1883, and it lasted till 1997.
Over 100 years.
This is in our lifetime that this has still been going on, and just in Canada, there was an estimate of 150,000 Native children that were put into these schools and taken away from their families. And it's characterized as cultural genocide. And so that knows no borders. It's crossed what we know as the border. And so taking the cultural genocide into account, that takes away your language, your culture, your traditions, takes you away, removes you from all of that. So to counter that, you would bring all of that back into education, as well as including real history, what I consider real history, and that's including what has happened on the U.S. soil with the genocide of the Native population here. So including Indigenous education in all respects, from K through 12th, changing some of the history that's taking place here in California with the 4th grade mission project.
Ooh, you just read my mind. You literally just read my mind.
Yeah, that is in the works to really try. That is a very good example of changing and
it's telling a more complete story.
Yeah, complete story, the real history. So incorporating that, and again, reintroducing our language and our culture and our traditions. And I think that really needs to be honored and acknowledged, and people will learn. People will learn the real history.
Yeah. I just recently found out that one of my ancestral cradles is with the Igbo people in Nigeria, right? Yeah. So talk about like, bringing back your culture and your language, so I know at least part of that for me goes back to the Igbo people. And so, yeah, that's so important, right? When we have a conversation around like reparations, whether it's for the Indigenous boarding schools or whether we're talking about chattel slavery, because a lot of people reduce the conversation to money, right? And a lot of people like, say the problematic stereotypes about, folks who maybe are in the casino industry, right? And like, oh, isn't that reparations? It's like, reparations is so much more than just a dollar amount. And especially when we're talking about bringing back and what we're trying to heal, like to try and quantify that with a dollar amount would, it would do a disservice, right? And so to end, our segment together, at least this segment, right? With thinking about like something that in your life that's currently bringing you joy, right? And it doesn't have to be surrounding your Indigenous American identity or your work at UCSC. It can, right? But just ending on like a note of like, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Well, I have to say our year-end ceremony with our 13 Indigenous Native American graduates,
all right,
that brings me joy. Those are our future leaders. And to be able to participate in that was absolutely amazing. So that's definitely one component. And then I recently got back into riding my motorcycle.
All right.
And so I went for a ride on the hottest weekend of the year.
Oh, no, not during this heat dome.
Yes. But I realized how much freedom it brings me, and how much like release. Like I don't feel like I'm carrying those 2 pounds, or not 2 pounds, 2 tons of luggage on my shoulder.
Yeah.
That I was free. I was free to just like go and travel and feel the wind in my face. So it's definitely nice to be back on the bike again.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so awesome, Angel. Well, thank you for being here with us. Hopefully if you're able to stick around, right? We may bring you back for the last segment when we read some excerpts from Rest is Resistance. So if you can stick around, we'd love to have you for that. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Sunday Dinner, Tackling the Taboo on 90.7 K-Squid. We're going to take a little break here, and we'll be back with our next guest, Sheyna.
What to Be features college students interviewing creative, surprising, passionate people about their careers. If you have ever wondered what to be, please join us Sundays, 7 p.m., K-Squid, 90.7 FM.
I'm Linda Berman Hall, founding host of A Cutting Edge. Every Sunday at 7:30 on KSQD 90.7 FM, one of our co-hosts interviews UCSC researchers about the lectures, book signings, conferences, or performances that they'll soon be sharing with the community. Learn the inside story here on KSQD 90.7 FM.
The Ageless Art Project invites artists and craftspeople to facilitate art groups for seniors living in a residential care facility. Volunteers guide residents through the creative processes of painting, drawing, or crafting, while residents experience feelings of pride and self-worth when completing their own art. For more information about becoming an Ageless Art Project volunteer, phone 831-459-8917 or on their website fsa-cc.org.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Sunday dinner. If you are just joining us, we just had some great conversation with my friend Angel Rio-Tutar from the American Indian Resource Center at UC Santa Cruz. But now I want to bring in my friend Sheyna. So Sheyna, you want to introduce yourself and what brings you to the space today?
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for having me. I'm glad to be here. So I am a third year at UCSC. I transferred spring of last year from Compton College.
All right.
Right now I'm majoring in sociology.
Awesome. And I understand that you are involved in what's called a vertical farm project initiative. Forgive me if I'm saying that incorrectly. Feel free to correct me. But how did you find your way into this kind of work, and what inspired you to get involved in this vertical farming work?
Yeah, so back in January of this year, I decided I wanted to double major in agroecology because I wanted a traditional farm. But then after doing research and working with my mentor, setting up an internship for a local farm for the summer, I realized that traditional farming wasn't exactly something that I was interested in anymore, just due to the industrialization of agriculture and how it's had negative effects on the land and the people. So I'd say back in April of this year, I learned about vertical farming somewhere on the internet. And as soon as I did, it just lit up. It lit a fire under me. Yeah.
So for folks who are not familiar, how would you describe or define a vertical farm if one were to try to visualize this?
Okay, so vertical farms are indoors. They're climate controlled, and they utilize aeroponic or hydroponic systems. So the closest thing you can picture is possibly like PVC pipe. Some use those to create aeroponic towers, or they just lay them flat out in trays and stack them vertically, of course. And it's soilless, so they only use water, and in the water they put nutrients.
And what kind of vegetation could you grow? Could you grow edible stuff?
Absolutely. You can cultivate all kinds of crops. Right now, I don't believe root crops you can, like carrots and potatoes. That's something you can't, but you can practically grow anything vertically.
Oh, wow. Okay. So given that, what impact are you hoping this kind of work has, say, for example, on the UC Santa Cruz community, or even on the greater Santa Cruz community, Santa Cruz County, right?
So not only am I looking at impacting Santa Cruz and UC Santa Cruz, but also just California as a whole and the nation, to be honest.
All right.
I started this project specifically with people in mind, people who are in underserved and underrepresented communities. So food swamps or food desert communities where they lack access to healthy, nutritious produce or foods. Yeah.
So, and just in case folks are unfamiliar, what would, or how would you define, I think you said food swamps or food deserts, right? If folks are out there like, what's a food swamp? What's a food desert? How would you describe that?
So it's basically a community that lacks access to healthy produce or foods, and they have an increased amount of like fast food options or liquor stores with very little, like I said, options for healthier foods.
So definitely potentially seeing this work, like maybe addressing some of the food disparities, right? That maybe that
Absolutely.
we see. Yeah. And so given, right, that that's a part of it, I can imagine maybe sometimes that there's pushback, right? When we talk about like bringing attention to underserved or underrepresented communities, historically marginalized, like Angel was talking about people who have been historically, attempted to be erased, right, from history. Usually that tends to come with some pushback. So has there been any pushback or challenges that you've had to face? And if so, what has that felt like?
Funny enough, there have been queries on my plan and how big it appears to certain people. I definitely feel the sense of overwhelmingness when I explain my idea to people. But I try not to worry about the things that I can't control, worry about the things that I can. So it's fun to dissect in the moment and think about, but I just move forward. It's not my issue to deal with.
Yeah. Well, what keeps you moving forward, right, in those moments where you do experience that pushback, those challenges? What would you say inspires you to keep pressing on despite that?
I'd say my own just personal tenacity.
All right.
Knowing that I want a world for my children where they can have access to healthy, nutritious foods.
Thinking 7 generations in the future.
Right. And my community is suffering right now. So that's really, really a pushing factor. Like I've lived in a couple communities that were categorized as food deserts, and it's horrible to see, to feel, to be in, and I want to be the change that.
And one of my mentors in graduate school used to say, "Research is me search." Right? Research is me search. Now I'm not sure where she got that from, but she was the first person I heard it from, and it's so true, because when we think about, at least when I think about, the purpose or calling potentially for education, for research, there is, and frankly there should be, right, this personal element to it. In some spaces we try to see research as something objective outside of ourselves, right? That I can study something in a way where my biases, my lenses don't have an influence on the outcome or the process or the proceedings or anything like that. But these are very personal things, right? When we've lived something and it's like, okay, how can I change this, right? And so I think that's very inspirational, right? Especially if there are any folks thinking about, pursuing whatever kind of educational journey, right? Whether that's a 4-year, research college, wherever, you mentioned at the beginning, right? Some of the impacts that, industrialized farming has had, in terms of like just, I guess nutrient distribution, I guess. I'm not a, scientist when it comes to that. But could you share with us, maybe some of those details around like what you have seen as some of those effects of industrialized farming, and where you see vertical farming in the future of agroecology?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the industrialized agriculture, the use of synthetic fertilizers, of course, chemical pesticides and herbicides, all to increase yield and in turn profit. This project is a environmental justice initiative.
All right.
It aims to create a healthier and more equitable environment for all members of our society, from earthworm to farm worker to consumer.
All right. And that's so important, because when we think about the future of farming, right, sometimes, it can be in this very human-centered kind of way. But then when we think about like, we need all these other partners like the earthworms, right, and the microorganisms, right, that are deep in the soil, right. Those are our partners, and they're often forgot and left out in the conversation. But yeah, they're so important.
Yeah. I'm hoping that this farm can serve as a platform to empower Black students and Black people in general in agricultural education and leadership, and foster that sense of agency, as well as with food sovereignty, creating a community-controlled food system where they're able to cultivate culturally relevant crops is important as well. Yeah.
This is very important. If you're just tuning in, folks, you're listening to Tackling the Taboo Sunday Dinner on 90.7 K-Squid. I'm here with my friends Sheyna and Angel, and Sheyna's just sharing with us about a vertical farm project, right, initiative. And the one you're involved with in particular, right, it's called Sankofa Sky Farm,
yes.
Right? And so could you tell us real quick, like why the name Sankofa?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sankofa is an African principle. It basically means know where you've been to know where you're going. And I think that's important, and it touches on what Angel spoke on. Just in society now, things are in a way, things are as they are because we don't have that cultural element attached to how we operate or how we move with each other or with nature. So with Sankofa, being able to look back on how we operated with each other in nature allows us to plan forward, making it more equitable for everyone.
Yes, alrighty. Thank you so much, Sheyna. We definitely want to have you back more to continue on in that conversation, because I understand there's some developments that are currently in the works to get some vertical farms in some spaces potentially on campus at UC Santa Cruz. And so we'll definitely want to have you back to see, where the next chapter in this project goes, right? And so we're going to take a little short break here, but then we're going to come back and read a couple passages, like I said, from the book Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey. So stick around on 90.7 K-Squid.
Though I am not fixated on riches, please don't get it twisted. I could get vicious about the paper. Take even a tidbit or niblet out of my skillet, and I'll provide you a ticket to visit your creator. My little mini-me's can't eat a favor. My sweat and toil ain't for the love of labor. I live by the principle, love your neighbor, but I keep some lead to draw that put cylinder holes in tables. I pray that evil don't rise against me. I pray you demons don't try to tempt me. It ain't no comparing them. Every bar I spit pure as the seraphim, screaming holy to represent me. This ain't for the coochie poppers or booty droppers who make they bum drum like unruly choppers. Tis for the mademoiselles with the heater full of shells that'll let them hosts prevail and raise hell to bring heaven on earth. Some blessings are cursed. With haters, I had Levions burst while running through holes. My Jada had to break my will to change a young heathen's trajectory. What's left of me is pistols and principles, both protecting me. Secondly, my girl light but pray heavily. Knocked her up on a cruise, word to Penelope. 3 females at my crib carried my legacy, so it's 3 Ks on my compound like white supremacy. Ooh, yeah, that's high-key a word. If your skin tone is black, then you high-key deserve compensation. Yeah, widely dispersed across your turf onto every seed you birth. If you concur, then say ooh, yeah, that's high-key a word. Since my skin tone is black, then I high-key deserve compensation. Yeah, widely dispersed across my turf onto every seed I birth. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
It's young Nell on the beach in the bars though. Clean as bar soap, black as charcoal, tar roads and cigar smoke with every bar spoke from my lips. Hope your eyelids allow your iris to see the flow is one with Isaac, Jacob and Abraham, daddy. Come get your cake up, but don't take up all the space in the valley. You good for mountaintops as well. It's countless attacks from hell on those mounted on the back of the counselor who counted heads on your high fade, low fade, no fade, box braids, crochets. Can't really think of more ways to reassure you. They'll abhor you in public but secretly adore you. Cause your aura couture, no matter who ignore you or who pay attention. Listen, you can bet your pension you was born to glisten till the day you layin' stiff and pine. I know all skin folk ain't my kinfolk, but the ones who are and ain't got no heart, wish I could dig inside and give you mine. Cause it's hard as hell for those I hear that's melanated.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Sunday dinner. We're in our last segment here, our just desserts, if you will. Angel and Sheyna gave us some great food for thought for us to munch on as you continue the rest of your evening today. And so for our just desserts, again, I'm going to read a couple passages from the book. It's called Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto by Tricia Hersey, who is the founder of the NAP Ministry. And just a brief, summary about the book, right? Disrupt and push back against capitalism and white supremacy by connecting to the liberating power of rest, daydreaming, and naps as the foundation for healing and justice. Tricia Hersey, the founder and creator of the NAP Ministry, encourages us to elevate rest as a form of resistance and a divine human right. So this first passage... And I'm going to be reading like a series of different highlighted quotes all together. So when you read the book, if you pick up the book, obviously it's not going to sound the same because I'm reading a cluster of passages together, right? How do I rest and work so I can make a living? Or, I would love to rest more, but I have bills to pay. How is this possible? I have been presented with a desperate question by so many exhausted people, and it speaks to the crisis we are in as a culture. Resting as a form of resistance will be a part of a lifelong unraveling, a mind shift, a slow and consistent practice filled with grace. Resting is an embodied practice and a lifelong unraveling. It is not something that can be trendy, quick, or shallow. Resting is ancient, slow, connected work that will take hold of you in ways that may be surprising. Ashe. So that was our first passage, right? Angel, Sheyna, any thoughts that come up from that first passage from Tricia Hersey?
What comes up for me is how we go about doing our work at the Resource Center and planning our events. Everything's very intentional. So with intention, it's slow, it's thought out, it's designed with an outcome. And so you have to move slow to make that process and to get to the end point and how you do things. So that's what comes to mind. So we're not rushing. We're not staying with that work culture.
What Tricia describes in the book as grind culture.
Yes.
Right, or hustle culture.
Yeah. Like answering the emails within like a minute. No.
Alrighty. So our next passage, right? And I like that Tricia asks a lot of questions and some of her passages, right? It's not just all about like telling folks, right? But it's a lot of asking of questions. Do I have a model or guide for what it feels like to be rested while living inside a capitalist system? What would it feel like to be consistently rested? What does exhaustion look like for me? Am I navigating the world from a constant state of exhaustion? Who was I before the terror of the toxic systems? Who do I want to be? What have you been told about your worth and existence? How do you make space to transcend the confines of a system that preys on the call of profit over people? Will everyone get free from grind culture? Have we been tangled up in the muck of grind culture for so long that we may never come up for air? How can we begin to explain the spiritual deficiency that occurs when you follow and uplift white supremacist thinking? How do we transform grief to power? And Ashe for the reading. Any thoughts that come up for folks? Any responses? Challenges?
Yeah. For me, with the grind culture, I'd say about 5 years ago, I decided that I no longer wanted to participate in that. And I haven't worked for the past 5 or 6 years.
All right.
Intentionally.
All right.
Because I wanted to prioritize my education and my children, and I've been doing that.
All right. Ashe.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, you have to take care of yourself, and in taking care of ourselves, you know, we have to make hard choices that don't seem to go inside with other with society's ideals, I would say. I know that it helps when, for at least as a support person on campus, excuse me, to be a little bit more rested and relaxed so that the students can take on that same kind of energy. You know, it's an energy transfer, and I think some of us all believe in that, you know, whatever we put out is what we get back. And so being able to ground ourselves in ceremony, in tradition, I mean, it really sets a precedence for the rest of the day, the rest of the thoughts, the rest of the intention. So
as support staff, as faculty, as lecturers, grad assistants, someone told me this a while back, that, you know, our working conditions, the places where we work, right, are students' learning conditions, right? So our working environment is their learning environment. And so if our working environment is that of stress and grind and hustle, then that's the kind of energy transfer that's then gonna, you know, be given to the students, right? And students talk about, you know, things feeling transactional and just like, you know, professors just treating you like a number, right? Not everybody, right? And certainly not UCSC isn't the only college that's guilty of it, right? But this is, you know, part of what, you know, Trisha's getting at, right? And that energy transfer, right? That's important. So some places we can begin, right? The next passage I'm going to read is some places we can begin to rest, right? Or practice rest as a practice. One, and I'm going to read this whole list, just a couple, but one, detox from social media weekly, monthly, or more. Begin to heal the individual trauma you have experienced that makes it difficult for you to say no and maintain healthy boundaries. Start a daily practice of daydreaming. Right? Yes. Just sit and I love that. I just love to sit and let my thoughts wander, right? It's part of that manifestation. Accept that there is no quick fix, magic bullet, or instant change. Slowly accept that you have been brainwashed. Your socialization in a capitalist culture makes this true. Begin to deprogram by accepting this truth of slow down. Resting can look like closing your eyes for 10 minutes, a long shower in silence. Well, maybe not here on the West Coast since we're in like a water thing, but maybe like a consciously timed shower, meditating on the couch for 20 minutes, staring out the window, sipping warm tea in the bed or before sleep. Slow dancing with yourself to slow music, right? I know, like dancing with yourself, right? Like dance like no one's watching, but like you know, kind of hold yourself, right? Like kind of hold and slow dance, right? A sun salutation, right? A 20-minute timed nap praying, right? There's a list, right, that Trisha goes into at this part of the book, right, of what resting can look like, because one of her main ideas or tenets, right, is that like that's not just like a trend or like a novelty or something like that, but it's a practice, right? And she connects it to like a lot of her identity as a Black woman, right? And that intersection and how that's impacted her approach to rest, right? And so I'm going to read this next passage, which might be my last passage. And then we'll take it from there. We'll see where we are with the Sunday dinner. Yeah. All righty. Harriet Tubman is one of the many muses for this work, an enslaved woman focused on the choice of freedom or death. Her inner knowing that life was on the other side of the trauma of being enslaved. Harriet Tubman crafted space to listen, to stargaze, and to pray while guiding people on the Underground Railroad. She stopped to listen to nature, to track the sounds of owls, and she was deeply in tune with the stars in her spiritual world. I like to envision that she was never caught by police while on her freedom journey because she paused, listened, and prayed. Her subversive and deep refusal to be in bondage is the energy I'm holding on to. This energy of refusal and maroonage grounds my personal experimentation with rest as resistance, and is the North Star for the ministry. Resistance is a rich, spiritual posture. It opens the possibility for reinvention and connection. Time is up for any shallow wellness work that doesn't speak to how dismantling the systems that are making us unwell. and ashe. So in these last couple minutes, any thoughts, responses to that passage?
Yeah, just speaking on the list of things that we should do to calm ourselves and find peace in society. One specifically, I learned while on campus at UCSC, one of my professors, FIYAH, I took over the winter this year. She had us do a stream of consciousness, and with that, all you had to do for 5 minutes was just write, and you allowed your brain to just, whatever popped up into your mind, you just wrote it. And by doing that, it was so freeing, and the things that my mind came up with was so beautiful, and it was such a wonderful release. Another reference that I gathered from your reading was a book on radical self-love, and how it is radical to love yourself and to choose to love yourself, and also your community.
Yes.
Especially in this society. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for everyone out there, I encourage you, right, to take some time this week, right, as a practice to take 5 minutes and free write, right? Take 5 minutes and listen to your favorite song, stare out the window, look at the ocean. We're on this beautiful Monterey Bay, go for a walk for a little bit. But I encourage you, right, in the spirit of our just desserts tonight, that rest is resistance. So thank you for joining us on 90.7 K Squid. We'll see you next time on the Sunday Dinner.